Hi, my name is Andrew Begel. I'm a principal researcher at Microsoft Research. This is joint work with Brittany Johnson, who's an assistant professor at George Mason University. We're going to talk about our experiences running a diversity and inclusion program at ASE 2019. So this program included a diversity and inclusion statement on the website, code of conduct, travel support and childcare assistance. Then we had a bunch of activities, including a first-timers lunch, a local college student visit, an ad hoc affinity group dinner meetup, a women's breakfast, a diversity and inclusion lunch, and karaoke. Now, we had a diversity and inclusion statement that was added to the website about equity, diversity, and inclusion, which are essential to the goals of IEEE and ACM. And we had a description of how we were supposed to do that with community diversity, speaker diversity, mitigating biases, and student travel awards. And there's a URL at the bottom if you want to take a look a little bit more. In addition, they had diversity, inclusion, and belonging chairs, of which that was what Brittany and I did. In addition, they've got a code of conduct on their website. And again, there's a URL at the bottom if you want to read it in more detail. It's about providing a harassment-free experience for participants at the event. Um, it also provided escalation to a conference committee member or venue staff, and if you're in immediate danger, go dial 911 to contact the police. Um, SIGSOF provided some travel support and childcare assistance, and with funding priorities for women, underrepresented minorities, doctoral students, and U.S. citizens. This was advertised on the conference website, Twitter, and Facebook. Applicants filled out a SIGSOF CAPS form to specify their need, and they also required a faculty letter to be written about it. So in the end, 14 students split about $12,500 worth of funding, went to 6 women, 1 underrepresented minority, and 3 U.S. citizens, among other people, mostly doctoral symposium participants. There were some challenges that we had, which was the form itself did not really give you enough space to specify your monetary request. And there was actually no mechanism at all on that form, which was being repurposed to self-identify as any particular minority group or confirm that somebody was in fact part of that minority group. It turned out to be challenging to decide how to split the money across these different funding priorities about women, minorities, doctoral students, and U.S. citizens. And the funding came from SIGSOF and NSF, which meant some of the funding was earmarked for U.S. citizens only. And that is a problem since we have lots of people from other countries, we want to provide funding opportunities for citizens from lots of different countries. We had a first-timers lunch, which has a really pretty card that Tom Zimmerman and Brittany designed for us. So we labeled 10 tables at the lunch the first day with cards for people who are new to the Automated Software Engineering Conference to sit there. We seated each table with senior members of ASE that we invited in advance. We got a list of registered attendees who had attended ASE 3 or more times and then used that to invite people. And all the tables ended up being full of people, each with generally about 1 senior member facilitating conversations among the participants. ASE is not a big conference, it has about 150 people total. Quite a few senior community members said that they really liked the event because it gave them an opportunity to give career and life advice to newcomers, and rather than just simply focusing on computer science topics. We didn't hear that much feedback from first timers other than that they went to it. We also had a local college student visit day, which actually was super fun. Since ASE was held in San Diego, there are a lot of colleges there that serve primarily Hispanic first-generation college students. So we solicited participation by emailing the software engineering faculty at every local college, university, and community college in the area, and asked them to invite their minority and underrepresented students to a free afternoon at ASE. We got 39 students signed up. When they got there, they got badges and conference swag to kind of make them feel like they were really part of the conference. Claire LeGuest gave a really nice introduction to software engineering research and ASE. And then the students got to attend 2 conference sessions and, of course, importantly for students, the snack break. The faculty chaperones that came with them expressed a lot of gratitude for their opportunity for their students because the students hadn't really known anything about CS research prior to the event. One student we saw tweeted about that they saw some interesting talks on automation and maybe they might have to look into research opportunities, which is like, that's a win, right? A picture of Claire giving her talk, as well as actually a nice photo of all the students who came, or most of the students who came. Uh, and we learned a bunch of lessons from this that we can give advice to future uh, D&I chairs. So first, the local faculty found it difficult to identify appropriate invitees in their universities. They ended up soliciting from CS student organizations and groups. UCSD had an early research scholars program, and they asked those people. So in the end, there was maybe like 2,000 people at UCSD in the major, and about 100 of them were sort of in this category of underrepresented minorities and women, which is kind of sad. 7 people signed up, even worse. Only 3 attended from UCSD. Students had to find their own way to the conference because we did not really have the facility to provide them buses. So one group rented a van. Another group was going to rent a bus, but there were only 7 signups. So then they were going to use Lyft, but then only 3 people signed up. So they just drove in one car. Claire's talk was awesome. We only gave her 30 minutes and probably should have given her longer. Um, the students found it a little difficult to appreciate or comprehend the conference talks, maybe a little bit high level for them. And none of the speakers really gave good background, which, is not really intended. It was for a conference. So it might be worth it if tell the speakers who are part of this that, and by part of this, I mean, tell the speakers on the day that the students are coming that maybe they should provide one extra slide of introductory material, just in case there might be real novices in the audience. And of course, they always want more food. And the weird thing is they came during lunch because they were getting there early, even though their program didn't really start till after lunch. So that was awkward because then there was lunch, but it wasn't for them, and they kind of felt bad about that. We did this ad hoc affinity group dinner meetup where we set up a table at the conference reception to help people to find places to go to dinner and go to dinner with poster boards, markers. We even came up with a list of nearby restaurants, of which there were not that many. Um, and this completely failed. Don't do this. Apparently, introverts, who are many at this kind of conferences, don't want to be part of a dinner group. They don't want to lead a dinner group. They don't want to go out with strangers. Even though everybody's a stranger, they would even still rather eat in their own hotel rooms. The conference fed people so well at the reception that very few people were actually hungry for more food, except for the younger ones. And the conference was in a strange part of town, nowhere near any restaurant. You would actually have to drive or get an Uber to go somewhere else. And finally, the reception lasted so long that by the time anybody wanted to go out to dinner, all the old people wanted to go to bed. We had a women's breakfast like in many other conferences, and we asked people to sign up in the conference registration page. We set this up in the ballroom, separated from the main conference breakfast, and people got free vouchers. We got 19 women attending, which was nice, including 3 senior members. One piece of feedback, there weren't enough senior members at the women's breakfast, and everyone who went, it was great, but it would have been nice if there was more. We also did a diversity and inclusion lunch. So on 9 tables within the larger conference room on the next day of the conference, we set up with table cards like the ones you see below. The LGBTQ table got its own room because it's sort of traditional for that one. And tables were seated with senior community members related to that group. And attendees could then just wander around, self-identify, and sit at their preferred table. This was within the larger lunch. Lessons that we learned. Tables were full, but not often with people who identify with that particular affinity group. There were a couple tables that were clearly misoccupied. Um, and we made a category called Global South that kind of made people from rich and poor countries in the Global South feel uncomfortable because they were put together. We tried to really figure out a way to talk about countries that don't have a lot of funding for researchers. And I don't think Global South ended up being the right thing because then we ended up getting some countries that are fairly rich and wealthy and sitting with people who are not. Um, Apparently, the DNI tables offended 2 attendees significantly that thought we were isolating people of diverse backgrounds from all the other people in the conference. And that was surprising to me. And I'm flabbergasted by it. If you want to see this more, just pause on the slide and you can take a look at these. They thought that separating people was exclusion, and that was really kind of interesting. I'm not sure what to do with that. Finally, we had people gave people the opportunity to attend a karaoke session. South San Diego is really has a very popular Korean karaoke bar scene. And so we had people sign up on Eventbrite and to go to karaoke after the conference banquet, and we bussed them there. Only 15 people attended, but it was a pretty diverse group. And Andreas Zeller and Alex Horso turned out to be amazing singers. And Andreas was very pleased that it was the first time he sang in front of an audience that wasn't his kids. Um, it was difficult to get people to come and engage something that was outside most people's comfort zones. And the event was really late in the evening. I mean, it was started at like 10 p.m. So if anybody who was jet lagged, that just wouldn't really apply. We sent out a survey to get feedback about the DNI activities and maybe future activities. Here are the things that people wanted in the future. And 81% of people who responded said they wanted increased travel funding for poor countries. They wanted live captioning, childcare. They wanted to record presentations for later on online viewing. That's kind of ironic since I'm recording this for later online viewing. They wanted an ombudsperson for reporting harassment and live language translation services. A few less people wanted that. Of course, apart from the code of conduct and the DNI statements, nothing here really applies to virtual conferences, which we are now stuck at because of COVID. So maybe we are starting at square zero and coming up with a completely new set of DNI events uh, for this year's set of conferences. Thanks very much, and let's discuss.